Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a realtor here in Williamson County, Tennessee, hot Williamson County, and I'm with my best bud back from vacation, I think, Rodney Wilds, loan officer, First Bank, also in Williamson County. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Doing great.
Were you on vacation? Was it? I'm asking. I guess we're telling the world. Were you?
Yes, I got an invite to go play a really great golf course in North Carolina called Wade Hampton, and went up there with a few friends and just had a fantastic time. Our host took great care of us, and it was an awesome time.
God, that sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful. So back to the, I'm going to say grind, I guess.
Back to the grind, back to the mortgage world.
back back to the numbers. So not much has happened other than there is a threat of Jay Powell, that stuff, and there's people talking about rates doing the cut, and we don't know what's going to happen on that. What today's show is about is it, and this may sound a little bit of an exaggeration, and it's how low can it go? And the first article is about the housing market craters with 56% of homes selling below asking, and experts warn the bottom hasn't been reached yet. Now, that may be a clickbait kind of a headline, but the fact is homes are selling for less. They're selling for, they're not, it used to be, it was over ask by a long shot. And now you're getting more concessions, and you pointed this out a number of times, Rodney, where sellers are offering concessions to get their homes sold, and the prices that they're ultimately selling for is less than that asking price. And what they're talking about on this particular article is it's a large number now. 56% are selling below asking. That's quite a trend. And then there's another article that we may touch on, and it talks about foreclosures. And before anybody says it's too early for that, I agree. We're not talking about any catastrophic stuff. But when it comes to foreclosures, and I happen to be kind of familiar with that, not personally, but in the market around here, that the numbers are increasing, and with that comes trends. And so and you'll see, I'll show you a graph that compared to what it was in 2012 versus now is nearly negligible, but it's still on the grow. So do you have any thoughts before we kick it off there, big guy?
Let's roll it.
So the housing market craters. So bing, here we go. There you go. It says when everyone thought the housing market had already bottomed out, and we use the term we hear dragging along the bottom. That's Rodney's phrase. From April through June, historically the hottest stretch for buying and selling, home sales fell to their lowest level since 2012. That's saying something. That's saying something. According to the New York Post citing Redfin data, which again, I'm going to say, as I always do, Redfin is competition, but I trust their data. They've got this data thing down. High mortgage rates, sticky prices, and growing uncertainty have driven buyers to the sideline, leaving homes to linger and sellers scrambling. I will tell you that, and I bet you know this too, Rodney, that it used to be when you have a listing, and I've got a couple of them, when you have a listing, you could almost depend on 6 or 7 showings and the house would be sold. That's the way it used to be, and especially in the recent past. In the recent past, it was 2 showings and it was sold. Well, now those numbers have gone up significantly. Have you heard any of your other agents talking about that at all, Rodney?
Not that specifically. Obviously, the days on the market, so it's kind of goes hand in hand since the days on the market. But yeah, I haven't thought about the number of people that coming in increasing, but it has to. I mean,
yeah. It's a really consistent figure. There's a company called Hey Angie, how are you? How are you? It's good to see your name. Glad to see you there. Sorry if I didn't see you right away. One of the statistics that's really pretty consistent, there's a company called Showing Time. And I don't know that it's across the country. That's local for us. But Showing Time is simply a company that facilitates showings for agents when they're got listings, or if you have a buyer and you want to see a listing, so they facilitate that. And we run a lot of our studies based on the statistics on showing time, and it is amazing where you can tell. For example, as a buying agent, if I have a buyer, uh, it used to be 4 or 5 homes, and you'd be able to write a contract, and now it's like 8, 10, 12 homes. It's just kind of amazing. And the reason, I think, is buyers are double checking their numbers. They're a little bit skittish because they're paying a premium and they want to make sure they're getting everything they can. So I thought this was a really interesting thing, and you and I have been kind of preaching this for quite a while now. Um, Veteran Atlanta real estate agent Glenda Baker, she's kind of cool. If you've ever listened to her, she is a pretty cool Southern girl that is very smart. Juggling a personal record of 21 listings, I'll come back to that, told Bloomberg, people say price solves everything, that is the golden rule. But what she said is price doesn't solve uncertainty. And that is right down the fairway, using your terminology, for you and me. That uncertainty part comes in. Can you speak to that and what you think when you're talking to your buyers and stuff as they're going through the process? How do have they gotten beyond the uncertainty by the time they've gotten to you?
Most have, because I'm doing, the pre-approvals and things like that. Occasionally, occasionally we get into something and it's just like it's just not a good fit right now. Whether it's the payment, the down payment, the whole scenario, but usually it's already passed. But it's just the affordability. I mean, it's just an affordability crisis. Like, the houses are expensive, the rates are high. It's just, it is what it is. Houses are expensive, and affordability for a lot of people getting into it it's just more difficult right now than it ever has been.
Yeah. What I've discovered, and this is based on recent history in doing transactions, is you show me a house where somebody's trying to just, it can be a family member has moved. I mean, it's vacant, and they're just ready to, I'm going to use the word liquidate the house, but that sounds like um, fire sale. I don't mean it to be, but there's two different types of sellers, in my opinion. There's those that are just trying to get rid of the house, sell it for, best dollar they can, versus somebody that's using the sale of that house to get their next one. Because the ones that are moving up or moving sideways or moving down, whatever it is, they are pretty sticky negotiators. They are tough. And then you show me the guys trying to liquidate, and it's like, hey, whatever you need.
Yeah.
you know. So now I want to jump back to one thing that Glenda Baker said, and this is just personal experience. This is kind of cool. She said, juggling a personal record of 21 listings. Now, Glenda Baker, I'm going to say again, she's kind of a big deal in terms of personalities in real estate, online, YouTube, and all that kind of stuff. Glenda Baker is a big deal. The guy that I used to work for, I mean that term loosely, used to work with at DeSelms Real Estate. Do you remember how many listings he used to carry, Rodney? Did you ever know? It was like 190.
Yeah.
Man, so when I never knew this about Glenda, and so I was like, Terry was hitting it anyway. So I'll continue on. Redfin's head of economic research was equally blunt in his comments to Bloomberg. We thought we hit rock bottom, but we keep discovering there's more rock bottom to be had. Here's Rodney's favorite. This is one of Rodney's favorite, and I highlighted, and I'll include this on purpose just to rub him the wrong way. The market imbalance is striking. In April, we had 34% more sellers than buyers, a lopsided gap not seen since Redfin began tracking in 2013. As of May, 56% of homes sold for less than their asking price, according to data from Real Estate Analytics Totality. The typical sale closing $45,000 below list. Let me tell you, if something is closing $45,000 below list, it's in the upper price ranges. You know, I think most of the time
Yeah.
you're not going to have that happen with a $350,000 house. I don't think, unless it's priced wrong. Inventory is piling up, and in some markets like Naples, Florida, prices have dropped 15%, while Miami sales volume has fallen 37%. That doesn't surprise any of us. And Florida is kind of in a hot spot, uh, pretty much. Even in cities where prices have held up, Newark, New Jersey, Detroit, and Cleveland. Detroit, that Cleveland held up. Interesting.
Yeah.
Homes are taking longer to sell, averaging around 40 days on the market. In Nashville, we've increased days on market the most of any. We're at the top of the list on extra days on market compared to what it used to be. Nationwide, active listings are up nearly 13% year over year, but more supply hasn't translated into a healthier demand. Here's a really important point. Beyond the cooling pace, some homeowners are staring down losses. In Austin, Texas, roughly 14% of homes are at risk of selling for less than their purchase price. Nationally, about 6% of homeowners, many of them pandemic era buyers, are in the same boat. Isn't that an interesting stat about that? Why would why would Pandera buyers be selling already, do you think?
You know, what is it, 5 years? I mean, everybody gets the itch
Yeah.
that fast.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
has been 5 years, hasn't it? Jesus. Wow.
that's the normal moving time. It's just, you know, if you buy to absolute height, and you could be running into a risk at, in a 5 year turnaround period,
Yeah.
of, but it, it's, I mean, they bought at the absolute height. They bought it. These people are talking about potential dangers, or they're the ones that bought without looking at it. The very top of 19 offers. You know, so in 5 years, some of them ain't going. But they knew that going in, right? I mean, they had to live there. They paid a premium to do it, and you know,
It shocks me when you say that. It's been 5 years, or talk 2021, 4 years. Time flies. I mean, good God! And to think about everything, the hoops that I've got to step back. This is freaking me out. Think about the appraisal gaps that were covered. Think
yeah.
about over ask of $75,000, and that's fine. I want that house. Golly, man, oh man, that's man.
No, nobody mentions that when they're in the eBay competition, trying to outbid somebody. When they go to sell it, they didn't mention that they got in a bidding war at the toughest competition of all time. So
God, that just wow. There's a lesson in there that maybe take the long view. I don't. I guess the people thought the world was falling apart with COVID coming around. Anyway, so the next section we'll be done with this one, and we'll move on to the fun stuff. The strain is also showing in mortgage performance. Now, this is I thought this is interesting, and I'm going to put a bow on this in a second. Believe it or not, nearly 40% of FHA 40% of FHA borrowers missed a payment in the second quarter of 2025. Does that surprise you, Rodney?
yes, yes,
40%, according to federal loan data. So, I mean, these are the big dogs. They're not, there's no headlines they're making here. And the foreclosure activity is climbing. Analytics from Adam, big deal company, reports 187,000 properties with filings in the first half of the year, up 5.8% from 2024. Foreclosure starts rose 7%. Now, before anybody gets all panicky about this, I want to make sure that you see this. This was back in 2010 when foreclosure, that's when we used to go out and this is when when foreclosures were actual foreclosures there were houses that I would refuse to walk into. These were the types of properties taking us back when people, they knew it was so prevalent They knew they were getting kicked out, and they were taking the copper with them. We'd go in there, and the copper would be missing from the houses. And one of the biggest sales items back in the day, I don't know if you remember this, Rodney. They don't sell them much anymore, but do you remember the cages that they used to install over air conditioners?
No, I haven't seen
Yeah,
it.
there was cages that when somebody would get ready to sell a house, they would put these big old cages over the air conditioner, and all they're doing is saving the copper. But the reason, such a different time. The reason I wanted to show you this is 187. That's over here. That is minuscule compared to what it was. However, it seems to be trending up, and the whole point of this article, as far as I'm concerned. Come on, here we go. Thank you. That's interesting. Hang on. I'm having a glitch here. Oh, it'll crank. It'll come. The whole reason, see that? The whole reason that it's going to go through a bunch of shifts there. That I was mentioning it is the market has changed, and we're still in the midst of that change, which is my point. We're looking for a landing spot. If you were to try to button all this mess that I just made, Rodney, how would you phrase that? Where are we now? What do you think? What's going on?
You know, thing I'd like to add, when you have this many, it's this many listings and not enough and not as many buyers. You got more sellers than buyers. I'm actually surprised that 46%, only 40%, 6% of the houses are going less than list price. Like it should be 80%. Like what? Why
Mm.
isn't it closer to 100% on negotiations? Now I know some builders are going to keep their price up and give you, all kinds of upgrades. So you got, maybe 10 or 20% factored in there and things like that. But it just seems like to me it's a buyer's market. That number should be a lot higher. But the 40% of people missing a FHA payment, and that is concerning, because that's good underwriting, that's recent. I mean, that shows more about the economy. That people with their jobs and things like that, because they were qualified at one time to make that. And then, but that's concerning. Now, the increase in foreclosures, I'm not as concerned about that because it's been almost zero. So if you tell me it's 6%, that could have been 50 houses or something.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about the percentage of increase in foreclosures, but it should start, because our economy, for the last how many ever, our appraised value has gone up so fast that foreclosures just haven't been an option, and we're several years into that now, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's always foreclosures. It's not like foreclosures come and go. There's always foreclosures. People run into problems, and that's not people. I'm not blaming a certain category for that. It's just
No.
life.
That.
But that so some of the numbers surprise me, but it's actually one surprised me that's a little low, only 40 something percent being acting like it's being negotiated. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think
I,
the actual number was. I'm not trying to correct. I think it was 56% was
yeah,
less than asking. I think is what it was, which
yeah.
more than half. I think, and it seems like, and I'm really struck by the comment that was 5 years ago when I'm a little bit shocked by that. That if there's foreclosures or difficulties, I don't want to say necessarily go that far because that's down the road. It's going to be mostly, I would think, those people involved, because you show me somebody that's bought in any time before the 2020, and unless they have HELOC the hell out of it, they're going to be able to have quite a gap to cover. I mean, they're going to have an equity gap, positive ways, I would think, of a long shot. And the other thing about the last thing I'll mention about foreclosures, I didn't want to drag that on because I'm not trying to be scary or anything. But the average, you know what the average number of days it takes to complete a foreclosure is? There was a graph in there. I didn't want to stick around. 680 days.
Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable.
I mean, that's the
I,
average, Jeez.
I would bet that if we're in a normal time that number will be a reasonable number, because I bet the number is still from the last time we had that the people were doing foreclosure. I mean, they had say Bank of America may have had 10,000 of them. So if it took them 3 years to get through them,
That's
that's the
exactly
deal.
right. That's
Um,
exactly right.
so if everybody has their fair share of them, banks or whoever they'll work through those in a timely, unless the whole like it was in the crash.
Oh, that was. I remember they go into foreclosure and they live in the house for 3 years.
Yes, wouldn't yeah. I mean, they would. Yeah, nobody'd ever leave. They'd just stop paying.
How long you been here? 3 years. Yeah. When was the last time you made a payment? 3 years ago. Really? Okay. I mean, that's a backlog. And for anybody that's keeping track, closing was about 2 months. Yeah, it takes a minute. The rankings for Tennessee and California, because that's the only salient states that we're concerned with today, is California is 17 ranked on the foreclosure list. So that's 17. And Tennessee, surprisingly enough, is number 37. So we're not even close to the top. I'm a little bit surprised by that. So we're doing all right. Keep on keeping on. So I know what's next. Let's do Rodney's riff. I am so glad to be back doing this, Rodney. How much should I put
All
down on
right,
it?
let's go. Was unhappy brilliant 61. How much should I put down on the house? I'll quickly go through this here. I am 30 male, looking to buy 800 to 950 house, and have been weighing the options of going high down payment or low while keeping money invested and investing current cash. I currently have 325,000 in cash, 1.4 million invested across index funds, and 120,000 in current home equity. Part of me wants to put a very high down payment, 60% plus, to lower the stress of needing to continue making good money, but am unsure how much that will hinder my future investment growth. I imagine it theoretically makes sense to go to 20% if my investments can outpace the 6 to 7% interest rate. Is there a general thought of which method would make the most sense? So, yes, the first thing I want to say is yes, there is a general thought. The general thought is this: do what's best for you. Clearly, go through a couple of your stats again. You're 30 years old. You have 325,000 in cash. You have 120,000 in home equity, and you have a 1.4 million already invested. So the first thing I would tell you is I'm not sure that I'd ever go on a board and ask for financial advice, because you have outpaced almost every single person. Your financial, you're 30 years old and you've got a very great start on your investments, your money, and all that stuff. So whatever you're doing, you need to keep doing it. First of all, that's what I would say. You're already making great decisions. Keep doing what you're doing. But I'll dive in here and let's talk about some details of this. I like that you started out at 20%. It makes sense to go 20% if my investments outpace the 6 to 7% interest. I like that you start there. Two things I'll say about the way I feel about when you're asking this question to yourself. One is, I think as time goes on, your current payment, whatever payment you get into today, it's going to seem high. It's your new payment. But in 5 years, I think that payment's going to be fine. Maybe even in 2 years. So I think you get used to your payment as you go on. And two, I think it's always hard to come up with two or three, $400,000 in cash. You just don't get that many opportunities. You've got it saved in one big pile. It's hard to get it back once you get rid of it. Fast. Anyways, you can obviously you've saved it. You can do it again. But so that's what I would say. I would definitely look at the 20% mark, maybe a little more. The thing I wouldn't go above, if I did anything, if I were you, I would use some of the 325 in cash, and in your current equity, but I would not fool with the investments. That's kind of where I would stay at 20%. But this young man's, I'm assuming it's a 30-year-old male. This young man is doing very well. Getting on Reddit and asking for some opinions is kind of playing with fire with him. But, he's on the right track. Like I would make sense to look at 20% or just maybe a little bit more, but I would definitely not touch my investments if I was him. So let's jump into comments and then let's see what we say. There's one right here, Ragiri, the second one down, says you can always make a large principal payment and recast the mortgage. Put 20% down, find a good rate, see how the payment feels, and then recast if you don't like it. That's not the worst advice I've ever heard. I'm not a big fan of getting into something and then having a backdoor plan to get out of it. The recasting is an option for most conventional loans, but I would rather make a decision up front and move on with it and put some thought and run the numbers up front, and don't try to recast later if you didn't like it. Let's see here. Who else here? Joe, the taxpayer. You don't mention what your income is or anything about your budget. In general, getting a mortgage equal to twice your annual income is pretty conservative approach. And if you can do this, your payment will be reasonably small part of your monthly budget. At 6.7 interest on the mortgage, your investments will return over the long term as you're investing the difference, of course. I don't know why Joe taxpayer would want to know his income, but that ain't how in general, get twice your annual income is not any way, shape, or form of how you figure out what your mortgage needs to be. So I do like his advice of saying, he does have a point, as we all, as everybody's kind of been saying, is like, hey, your money can out earn your interest rate, so keep it invested. But, this is, again, Joe taxpayer. You get that kind of comment when you go on this Reddit and ask. The guy saved up 1.4 million already, 1.7 million. He's doing pretty good. So let's see here. Unk 2K15. I would never put more than 20% down. We just purchased a similar price home at 31 years old and elected to put only 5% since interest rate at 20% wasn't any better, and the PMI is only 110 a month. It made more sense to put the bare minimum down and leave the rest invested. Here's 2K15. See, this is, again, you got a guy that doesn't have the necessary means that the first guy has giving advice. So, and he put 5% down. So I definitely would lean more towards the, and somebody says, I never put more than 20% down. Well, if the guy said up here, he said instead of having, 1.4 million and he had 6.3 million, he needs to pay cash for the house. He doesn't need to get a loan. At some point in time, you don't need to get a loan. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but yes. And then let's see here. We're going to go. Who's the last one here? Membership decent 9454. This is what you need to do. Okay. Put 20% down with no PMI. Depending on your state and the timing of rates going down, you refi. If you keep itching about the principal, you add a payment solely towards interest extra. The rule of thumb for this is to take your mortgage payment, divide it by 2, and pay that amount in a separate payment from the 10th to the 20th of the month. And in the memo, put principal. If you were to do this every month, it would take half the life of the mortgage. To be honest, I wouldn't use an arm rate unless you were an investor or you make some serious blanking money. Okay. This guy's giving some terrible advice. Oh man. He, I do like the comment. I would rather a refi later down on the road if it always, refi is just managing your money. Like if you can make up the cost of the refi in a short amount of time by the savings in your interest rate, then that's what you need to do. Who knows if a refi, time is going to be coming up. It might be, but this stuff he put in there about the memo to the principal and add one, cut it in half. That's just the biggest bunch of nonsense I've ever heard in my life. What I think they're trying to say is if you pay an extra payment,
Right.
one extra payment a year, it knocks a couple years off the life of the mortgage. It doesn't cut it in half. But, and I don't know how you would pay your separate payment from the 10th to the 20th of the month. That's just nonsense. I mean, there's a lot going on with that one. It's just, but my point is you have a gentleman up that's in really good financial situation, and he's got it. He's already on the right track, and he asks a general, which he asked for some advice, and he got some good advice there. But man, he is so far ahead of everybody else. I really wouldn't be asking for his opinions on Reddit. It's like, you take that Sofia Vergara, right? That lady that's on America's Talent. It's like she's going to go on the internet and ask for beauty tips, right? It's like, probably not the best idea ever, They've already got it going on. So that's my riff. That's the reality.
Whoa! Sorry
check.
about that. Andy, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I hit the button a little early. I had a week off, and so my timing is whacked.
It's all good.
Oh man, let's. So that's really that guy is doing well, and you make a really funny point. The guy's got close to $2 million hanging out looking for something to do, and he's getting advice from a guy that probably doesn't make that much money.
Yeah. But he asked, that's the thing about it is that, people will give their opinion where, they just need a ounce of a reason to put it out there.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that's why that's the reason that I'm kind of a Reddit fan. Good, bad, or indifferent, the comments, nobody was mean or rude. They're just saying, here's what I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pretty good. So I wanted to touch base the next couple of things, and then I'm going to absolutely throw a curve at my buddy Rodney here. New segment, new thing, but I did this surprising on purpose. But the next thing I want to talk about, just real briefly, was what is going on. Is this big changes could mark a housing market sweet spot this fall. You're ready to take advantage of them. I thought this was a really interesting article, and here's why. For 20 years of selling houses, I know that Rodney has been doing real estate longer than certainly me or his loans. And there's always been a pattern, and it is that springtime is hot, cools down in the summer, and then the fall kind of picks up a little bit, and then it goes quiet in the winter. And then rings around in mid spring and it gets busy to the early summer, and then it's busy, and then it slows down. And, it just back and forth like that for years. Well, something we figured out with DeSelm's Real Estate years ago was during the course of the year, when it gets close, what will happen is when it gets close to Halloween, I'm telling you, that's the beginning for buyers. They start having this holiday conversation. And at some point, people will talk to them about listing, and at some point, they're going to say, well, it's almost Thanksgiving and then Christmas, and so we're just going to wait for New Year's. And so, it's like a quarter, it's 3 months away. And like Terry always said, Christmas is one day. Don't get wrapped up in trying to sacrifice a whole month to Christmas, because it's one day. Thanksgiving is one day, he would say. But here's what we learned over the years was as the summer cools off, goes into fall, the market starts to slow down. And then when it comes to December, you've got the lowest number of buyers and lowest number of listings. But this is what we've learned. At DeSelm's Real Estate, we used to have our best months in December. And the reason was, what we would teach people is this. For buyers, if there's buyers out looking at houses when it's cold, and it's not terribly cold around here, but it can be uncomfortable. If there's buyers who have gotten pre-approved and are willing to get out in the cold and go look at houses, that's a serious buyer. I'm telling you, that is a buyer that wants to do something. The looky-loos have gone home for the season. And when it also for listings, you show me a house that is listed in the middle of November, forget Halloween, but middle of November, knowing that Thanksgiving is coming and Christmas follows, that is a person who is willing to get their house show ready, of which there's two types of conditions of houses in: living in and show ready. There's two different kinds. You show me somebody that's willing to go through getting kicked out of their house every day for showings, and I'll show you somebody that is dead serious about selling their house. They got to move. And so in December, we would find there's this perfect match of motivated buyers and motivated sellers all sort of collapse in December. We used to have outrageous numbers. It was kind of amazing. Once we figured out the why of it, it made sense. Then we could speak logic to the people. If you're looking at a house as a buyer and they're listed, they are going to listen. They're going to negotiate because they're serious about selling their house, and who knows why. But at any rate, so what this article is about is all that getting shifted. And it's maybe you were planning to buy a house this year but haven't found anything yet, and panic is starting to set in because you're worried you've missed the housing market season. And that's what I'm talking about. It's common you'll find a higher number of listed properties in late spring and late summer. That means if you're in the market for a new home, you have options to choose from, but also face stiffer competition. Traditionally, fall and winter are quieter, but if you find a place you like, you may be able to get a better deal on it. That's always been the case. Potential home buyers, this is the new stuff. Potential home buyers, however, may be able to take some comfort from the picture being painted by recent data that suggests this fall may be a great time to buy it. What the heck was that? To buy a new home. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, Glenda Baker, a lot of uncertainty out there, and some buyers are just waiting to see what happens. Zillow senior economist said in an article published July 20th, so if you're able to buy, fall could be a sweet spot since you won't be competing against a pool of buyers waiting on the sidelines. Just a couple of other thoughts. A fall with higher inventory and fewer buyer means that if you're in the market for a new home, you're likely to have more time to decide on your options. You have time to really consider if that home is the right fit for you, which is what I was talking about earlier. People are actually waiting instead of feeling pressured to, if we don't put it off, we're going to lose it. They're able to, can we look at it again this weekend? More than likely, you will be able to. With fewer buyers, you also have less likely to endure a bidding war for a home you want, and may have more negotiating power. That absolutely um, falls true. So, are you ready to take advantage of the buyer's market? Whether you should take advantage, and this is Rodney's bailiwick. Whether you should take advantage of an improved buyer's market depends on your personal circumstances. We've been preaching that forever. You can't time the market; it's time in the market. Is if you're a first-time home buyer, the CFPB, which I think they're booting those guys, aren't they? Suggests that you have at least 2 years of reliable, regular, steady income as well as good credit. I think that's showing an employment history. Isn't that right, Rodney? That's what they're talking about. And Ramsey Solutions, which is interesting. Ramsey is a guy, he's a financial guru, lives right here in Franklin or close to it. He offers a personal financial education, recommends you pay off all your other debts and build an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. We know there's people on this very broadcast that don't agree with that particular theory, right? Right? Yeah.
Some of it. Yeah.
Some of it. From there, you'll need to save. That was fun. You'll need to save up a down payment, preferably 20%. Boy, we're talking about that, or more, so you don't have to pay mortgage insurance. You also need budget, blah blah. And before you start searching for houses, here's the bottom line: make sure you can afford all your monthly housing costs, including mortgage, taxes, homeowner insurance, and homeowner association fees. So, the reason I wanted to bring that up is the two things that. With days on market increase and people have more time to buy, more time to choose, more time to negotiate. You show me a seller that's hitting 3 weeks and they're like, they're ready to negotiate. And the sweet spot moving into the fall would really be a change. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would love to see the sweet spot move to fall, because it seems like summers are just filled with, schools out and everything. But yeah, wouldn't that be a nice, fall wouldn't be a nice time, but summer's always going to be a pretty busy time in a normal market. I mean, they're going to move while school's out. People are going to move while school's out, and that's the majority of what I do. So,
and that really is the thing. You're always. Not always. There's different. The motivation for people is broad and it's wide, but the ones that are intense on getting things done, it usually involves either downsizing upsizing because they got a kid coming, or schools. They're trying to get in the right school district, whatever that means. They're highly motivated, so buyers will be motivated to do that. So. I would love to see that. And especially, I got to tell you, this summer has been tough. Showing houses, and I'm not whining, though it sounds like I am. Showing houses when it's 95 degrees. Everybody gets a little grumpy by the end of the day. It's like,
yeah.
I don't even want to walk in that one. Okay.
Get you a cooler full of ice cream in your trunk or something.
Yeah, that'll work. I thought that was interesting on that. So I'm going to try something new. Rodney, I'm going to just absolutely, let me get set up on this. I'm going to get set up on my side. Hang on. Here we go. Come on, load up. Come on. Here we go. This is called, oh, it disappeared. Shit. This is a new segment I'm calling A Little Off the Top. Okay, now what this is a little off the top. I'm going to pull up, because I don't know if you have access to real estate news. That's a paywall kind of a thing, or we get it free from GNR. But the idea on this segment is I'm going to pull up and show Rodney off the cuff news articles and just see off the top of his head, off the top of my head too, what kind of a discussion we can have about things. That's why it's called A Little Off the Top of your head. So the first thing I saw, what do you think? Is this like if we were talking in the morning over a newspaper and coffee? That's, we're at the hotel. That's what this is. That was my imagining. Investors stepping up amid the crunch in the housing supply affordability. Do you have a lot of investors? Is that the way they go? Do they roll that way with you?
No,
No.
no, I don't have, because I do mostly Fannie Mae stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the the prince one of the banks that's going on some crazy deal, and the bank president involved a long time ago, and basically we were looking at trying to take down a couple streets, do the mortgages on a couple streets, and a lot of those, some of the mortgages would have had PMI. So the PMI companies were getting involved and say, well, if a tornado come down here, we're at too much risk, because we're going to have
Mm,
these two streets or whatever. So basically, the long story was my boss said Fannie Mae's doesn't bankroll investors. So the
got it.
investors that I get are onesie twosies, have a handful, not when you call them investors like hedge fund managers that come in and buy 40 and 50 at a time.
Actually, and I was actually my view on that was because I think it says it in there. And again, this is meant to be a little not unfair, but off the top is what I'm looking for. But most of these, the investors stepping up, are mom and pops, of which we are familiar with a couple of those. So it just seems like they, I want to say, they smell opportunity out there. It seems like to me, because the difference, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, the difference between investors and a lot of times home buyers is the investors have already got their money set up. They know where their money's coming from, versus somebody that's trying to stretch to get into a house, whatever the case may be. That's just my thought. So here's,
Yeah, the way, yeah, what I see with investors is like, it's just to me, every time I run the numbers, it doesn't make much sense because the investors I deal with are looking to buy a property and cash flow, and they can't really cash flow right now with these rates. And,
mm-hmm,
and the home price and the rates, they're not cash flowing good enough to for their margins is what I'm seeing.
right. And Angie asked the question, which I think is on everybody, certainly on my mind, is what happens if interest rates go down this fall? I depends on how much, right? But wouldn't you see an uptick in buyer competition if that were to happen?
I think so. I think soon as I think housing, like let's say the housing affordability crisis, or where the situation where more listings are coming up than buyers, prices will drop, right? So I think prices dropping and rates will definitely get people off the sideline that's been pent up demand for years.
It, absolutely. Because if people are looking for any reason, they're just looking for a good reason to move forward. That's that pent up demand and the uncertainty that plays into it. I mean, God, this has been going on for a while, and I mean, and the administration has been pushing, pumping, lower the rates, lower the rates. I mean, it's become a drum beat, and when that happens, people will think that it's him having an effect, which I seriously doubt. If it's going to go down, it's probably for solid financial reasons. But at any rate, people are looking for a good reason to move forward. That would be a good one. Here's my next one. Are you ready for this? It says after a year of NARS, I know this is hard to read, Ange, I'm sorry. It says after a year of NARS new rules, commissions are up. Now, remember a year ago we were, and Rodney, you actually predicted this, I think. The new rules are you can't promote commissions on the MLS anymore. That if somebody you can get paid commissions two or three different ways, but now it's primarily when a buyer makes an offer, the request for a buyer agent commission, if they want the seller to pay it, goes into the contract without it goes into the contract. That has not been pre-negotiated like it used to be. Well, here, because I have listings that are active, I'm getting all the versions of that And now this is saying, if you read the article, it would kind of mess up our stream. But it's saying commissions are actually up because of what's going on. And I got two examples of that. One is we submitted an offer. I asked for and I requested, and this is non-specific, nobody can slap me around for it. I requested the three apples on there. And when they came back, they had accepted it. And when the thing was done, they said it was interesting because initially they were only going to ask for 2.5. And now the reason that's an interesting thing is because had I asked, that's what they would have said, and I would have accepted that. But instead, because of our training, because of where I work, they said, don't do that. You ask for what you ask for and let them make the decision, right? Well, the other day I had an agent that requested from me, I've got a listing, a couple of them, but this particular agent, and I'm not casting aspersions, but the question was, we're interested in looking at X, Y, and Z. Is your seller is your seller offering buyer agent commission? And if so, how much? Plus, are they offering concessions for the buyer? And I'm like, just include in the offer. I mean, because if
Yeah.
you're a listing agent and you give that up, you've just spent your seller's money, without asking, because it's just not the way you do it. And the reason I mention that is that's how, and this is what I was talking about a year ago. You got 1.5 million. This is precisely what I was talking about. You've got oh God, thanks, Ange. Across the country, got 1.5 million people trying to interpret what that means. Meaning, how do you get paid and how do you ask for it? And that's one version of how you don't do it. And I was like on the rooftop screaming, that's not how you do it. So are you surprised at all? I've gone on too long about that. Are you surprised about that at all, Rodney?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because I think the number one thing that like the DOJ was wanting to get across is that it was negotiable. Like the this was not set in stone, and the part should negotiate up front about what that fee is going to be.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I'm not surprised it's worked out. But I am surprised it's lower because I would have figured that people would negotiate more because that was the thing. It was like it really wasn't. It was negotiable, but it didn't need to be negotiable because it was already in there. If that makes sense, but
It was pre-negotiated before it was ever on the
yeah,
market. The battle was between, that's a little aggressive, but the conversation was had between the listing agent and the seller, you know. And so when you had somebody that was good at it, like I could list off a number of, it was always it was pretty consistent, But now, I am surprised that the numbers are up. Now, when that says that they're up, if you were to look at the percentage, it's like 0.3%. It's not like a huge chunk, but it didn't
but it
tank
didn't
like
go
everybody.
down.
Yeah, it
I
didn't go down.
expected it to go down. I mean, that was part of the issue too. Is that the DOJ thought that our whatever it comes out to be 5.2% was high across other nations. Like comparing other nations. So, but the one realtor that called you and asked you that, it's like, man, what planet are you on? It's like well, if they had said, well, I'm going to offer you 25,000 above asking price, yeah, I'll even give you a bonus. Like, I mean, it's all part of the negotiation now. It's like those are not separate items anymore.
That's exactly right. And the other thing, and I'm not trying to be a smart guy, it's just that it's interesting because when that first came out, I went through. I mean, if I had a superpower, overthinking would be it. I mean, it's just I overthink that. I overthink. And I was going through all these scenarios, and it was more personal. How am I going to handle this? That was what I was trying to puzzle out. And again, you got 1.5 million people across the country, all really trying to do the right thing. But the biggest difference that I have seen, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, the company, because they always tell you where they're coming from. This is Joe Blow from Bob's Realty. They tell you where they're coming from. It was a company I'd never heard of, and that doesn't mean good, bad, or indifferent. But I'm saying, you show me the Kellers and the Compass and the Redfins and the Benchmark, I'm going to tout those guys because they are training fools, meaning a good thing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of smaller boutique companies that they don't either have the capacity or the equipment, to train, I think, effectively. That's just and it shows that it's lacking by that one person approach. Only judging. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Well, I
supposedly.
mean, it is what it is.
Yep. Last thing, and I thought I love this. I hope I love a little off the top, and I hope you do too. Here's the next one. Rodney, what do you think about this? Tony, our guy, our Nashville guy, lands $340 million construction loan for the Paramount. Have you read about that?
I haven't, but he's the one that done the Viridian and a couple other ones downtown, right?
505. Yep, all those.
Yeah. So he's done several. Yeah. Good for him. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, every one of those projects that his name's been associated to has turned out phenomenal.
phenomenal.
Like,
And
and I don't know him. I've never met him, but I did when I did some work at the Viridian and a couple other of those units, downtown units. The ones that he was involved with was always just like, very smooth. Like, yeah. So whatever he does it right.
he
From,
does it
from
right.
what little I know, now he could be involved in 9,000 lawsuits and this, that, and the other. I don't know, but it seems like every time he touches a project that I've known about, it's been fantastic.
If anybody's ever gone to, and I'm talking about specifically with Nashville, because this is a big deal. When people talk about Nashville being the it city, I don't know that, maybe we are, maybe we're not, but we're continuing forward. When you talk about the stuff that's going on in the East Bank, if you're not from here, look up East Bank Nashville. Big deal. Oracle, big deal. And this guy comes in, been here forever, does places like 505 downtown, Viridian, like you said, just a number of really high quality things. And God just got this $340 million loan, and it's going to be 60 stories. And it's going to be what, the highest? I read it someplace. It's a record of some kind, but it's going to have 360 apartments, 140 condos, and a 517 space parking garage. This guy thinks of everything. You need a place to park. You know what I mean? And it's going to be, I think I read, you might have to correct me on this, but it's going to be 700 feet tall. 700 feet tall in Nashville, man. I mean, we're going to get a skyline.
That's
I
it.
just
We got
thought,
to put a big guitar or something on top of it.
oh, yeah. I love that. No, I was
That's
thrilled to
awesome.
read
Yeah.
that. That's,
Yeah.
here's what that tells me. Nashville ain't going any place. There are a lot of cities in this country that would die for growth like we've got here, and it's great. So a little off the top, that's what it is. That's a little off the top. We're going to end it that way.
What do you think about changing that name to like maybe it's a little off the chin or something? Because like me and you is not you know what I'm saying? It's like look, it'd be very little off the top from us. More so you. I mean, because
That's
they
fine.
ain't getting nothing off the top of me.
Well, I only look like, okay, true confessions. I only look like I have hair when you're doing it looking sideways. If it's from the top,
Yeah.
it's like a solar panel, baby. Golly, I love that. After I confer with my buddy here, I'm gonna see if we can't keep that in. That's fun stuff. Um, that was fun today. Ange, thanks for coming by. And thanks for the not three apples thing. That really hurts. I want you to know that's hurtful. I'm kidding. Any final thoughts, Rodney?
No apples for you, sir.
No apples for me. We're all done. See you. Thanks, guys. Have
See
a good
you,
day. See you, Ange. Rodney. See you next Tuesday, buddy. Where's my? What am I doing? It's oh yeah, outro.